start off with a system that's just freshly installed, version 11 system. We have it here on our desktop. From here I'm going to go and make myself a directory called global, which is where we're going to work on everything. And in that directory I'm going to put a startup just to get started. Now what I use for a startup on my system is this, and it basically resizes the command window. That'll actually make it easier for you to follow along because it resizes the screen. I also call WinPan, which does all the persistence in the panels, and we enable the charting functionality that's in part of version 11. So we're just going to copy that program as well to /global/start up. So now that we're in the global directory, I'll copy in the actual product file that we were given. So I have that on the system in a directory called live30, and it's called products.csv. Oops. I'll copy that in. I forgot to put the path to where to target that file. So we've got the products file copied in now. And now I'll go, let me take a quick look at it so you can see what it looks like. And we'll say notepad products.csv. And you can see that it actually has the various fields on the data file. We have a column of product code, we have a column of description, price, quantity on hand, year-to-date sales, and standard cost, and all the various fields in there. So we've got to load that up on the system. This is the file we were given with. We're going to load that up on the system, and to do that we're going to use the CSV file import, and we'll analyze that. Now this is what the system found on the file. Everything looks pretty good, except I'll make a few small little changes. The largest description found was 38 characters. Let's probably make that 50 characters. That's probably what we want. And these ones here we will actually make currency. And we'll import the data file. So we now have the data file created. And if I was actually to go into the data dictionary system, you'd see the file was here, and all the data elements have already been loaded up automatically for you. So from here, we're going to make ourselves a Nomads panel library. We'll call it demo.en. We'll put that on the system. And down there I'm going to make a query program. We're going to call it prod query, and it'll be just a standard query program. Standard query. Let's select the file that we want to use, products, and I'm just going to make this to be product master file query. I will give it that name. These are all the fields that are brought in, so we'll put them up in the query, and that's pretty much all we have to do in order to make that query on the system. So we'll do that, and that's all saved off. Now, to make my life a little simpler, I'm just going to go in and put a small tweak into the data dictionary for products. Take a look at the first code, and basically in here I'm going to define the actual query there, and that just really helps us long term when I create screens and whatnot, so whenever I'm asking for a product code, it will know how to actually bring up that query for us. Okay. Let's go back in here into the library, and now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make myself a file or a program called products, and I'm going to actually make that as a file maintenance screen, and it's going to pick the data dictionary up here, and we'll take it from the products file. And that's pretty much all I need to do. So that'll give us something to work with and to start with. So we'll generate that. If I test it, I now have a panel that's all ready to go to actually provide us the ability to actually call up the screens. Now, one of the things I'm going to do while I'm in here, just make it look a little nicer on Windows, although it's not necessary because we long term are probably going to run this on the web, is I'm going to change the color to a light gray background and the standard black foreground, and that actually just makes that a little cleaner on the system. And I'll actually call this up again. I'm going to do one more thing, just something I happen to like to do, and that is I usually put a little box around here, and that just basically puts a small box around it. Actually, let me Alt Edit size, make it a little bigger. Alt Edit move, and just move that up a little bit like that, and that kind of makes a more useful looking screen. Okay. So that's what the screen will actually look like. Okay. So that's the basics on the system. So we now have a program that is ready to go. If I test it, I can go and hit the query button. Oops, I can hit the query button, and I can actually bring the query up here. I can select something from the query, and so on and so forth. Just to let you see that again, I had the query was off the screen a bit there, and there it is there. There's the query there. Okay. So we'll save that and carry on. So that's our basics for the moment. Now, one of the things the company asked us to do was to make sure we had a price list on that file. So let's go in and at the moment add a price list. We also had to produce a price list. So the easiest way to do a price list is to use the report writer. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the report wizard to actually do the price list. So we'll just carry on next, and this is going to be product price list. Good name for the report. Pick the table. We will select the products file. We want the product code, description, price list. No sense in the quantity on hand, year-to-date sales. Most of the cases, people will print this report anyway, and therefore having those pieces of information are of no value, or in some cases we may not actually want them. So yeah, standard sort orders by product code, default standards, no parameters. We want it to be a tabular report, and I want this to actually come back up to be on a viewer so we can actually see it. And let me just click this to see what it looks like. So that looks pretty good. So we're all set. We can finish this off, and we'll just save this here, and we'll call it price list. So we've saved that on the system. Okay, so let's go back to our panel, products panel, and I'm going to go and create a button on the same line as that. I'll actually make it a little bigger. And let's put a little nice image on that button for a report. I'll pick that off there. And we're going to associate that report so when it gets print to do a call. And the call it's going to make is to quote rpt/runreport, which is the entry point to run a report. And it takes a parameter of basically being the path name to the file, which is pricelist.pvr. That's what we saved it as. So we'll save that off, and if we've done everything correctly and I hit test, I should be able to hit that button, and there's our report. Before I go, I will do one small change there. I don't want that to have a wrap around it, so I'll just change it to a hyperlink, and that actually makes it look better. So now we just have a button there with no frame around it. Okay, so we have that all taken care of, and the file's all saved. And we're ready to go. Now, next thing we want to go and take a look at is we also have to add security onto the system. So we'll use the Nomad security system. And we'll start off with by making classifications, and the system will go and tell us it wants to make our standard security, that there's an admin class and a user class, which is all fine and dandy. And what I'm going to actually do here is I'm going to make a new class called web query class, which is a web query user, and we're just going to add that onto the system. So we're done that. Now I'm going to go and actually set up a user. Now I am going to go in and create this again. It comes up with the standard defaults and whatnot that comes on the system. And I'm going to make a user called John, and it doesn't exist, and his name will be John Smith. Now you might have to go. Now this obviously might take you hours to go and put in all the users if you had a 100-user system, but for sake of argument, we're just going to assume we're just going to do one user here, and he's going to be a web user on the system. So we'll write that off on the system, and John has been added onto the system. Now by default, when John gets added to the system, it automatically becomes his password is John for the first time through. So until he actually goes and uses the system, he actually will have that username. So if I close this off, and I can actually show you here, let me just quit down here, and I can close this, just up again, change our directory to /global, which is where we were, and I do nomads, and I go into security, and I go into users. It's going to ask me to, and it'll be John, and the password in this case will be John, and it's going to ask me the first time through to put my password. So I'm just going to put in Smith. Now, in actual fact, it's going to then say this is all user maintenance, and we're all done from there. Okay? So that's how the security system will actually work. Now, what I want to do from here, though, is I want to go and add our security in to the panel that we just did. So we're going to go into Demo. I'm going to select the product file. screen. I'm going to put security on it now. So here's our security. We'll take the right button and put security on it. And really the only person we want to have full access to that is the system administrator. So I'll do that. The delete button, I want to put security to the same thing, only the system administrator. So we'll add those two buttons. Now, obviously we don't want people actually changing any of these fields. So we'll take each of these fields here and we'll put security on. Full access for the admin, web access has only got view on the user. So we're going to do this on all the buttons that we have here. Full access and view only access. Okay. Security, full access web view is only okay. And here we go. I know it's a little boring, but we'll get this done. And oops. And security, full access web query as view only access. Okay. Let's just save this screen and get out and see how this actually works. So we'll issue a process, and the name of the panel is products, and the library name is demo.en. And as you can see, we have the product code. The fields are locked, so I can't change them. We have our query, which allows us to select an item. And I also have our printed report, which allows us to actually produce a printed list. So all that is good. If I do a start to, by the way, we can actually confirm products demo.en that it does actually require me to sign on. Oops, hopefully I can type the name. And I can log in here, and there it goes, and I'm all ready to go. So we're basically ready to go and start with the web. This pretty much completes it for this part of the presentation. And join us for the next part where we'll actually show you setting this up and running it on the web.